Maribel, just square it up for us a little bit, because going into these numbers, we had these reports coming out that Apple was really ceding ground in China to local rivals there, but the company sort of appeared to counter that. So were you expecting that sort of commentary?
The word on the street was that they were going to be down high double digits, and they basically came back and said that they were doing very well in mainland China. I think that surprised everybody. The number for iPhones in general came in about what we expected, but the China numbers were particularly interesting and surprising, and they actually refuted any claims on their earnings call that there were real serious long-term issues in China. So both of those I thought were extremely positive, which is why you're seeing the bump in the stock now.
Again, China has been such a key market for Apple, but where are we seeing, is there any sort of concern that you have around its sales there at all after this earnings report? And going into it, did you already have concerns at that point, and have they been eased right now?
I think everybody has concerns over iPhone sales for the next several quarters. There's clearly strong competition. Huawei blew away their numbers this quarter. So it is clear that it is a highly competitive landscape for China, and in China and for Apple in general. And we still believe that that is going to be the case going into the next several quarters, that it's going to be a very difficult environment in China and a real street fight for Apple. They tried to make light of it. They spoke very much about the China mainland landscape, but there's still concerns that there will be issues with China for several quarters to come. Overall, though, they guided very well. They refused to guide on iPhone sales at all, so we couldn't get a lot of color on that. But they are expecting to have growth for next quarter, which I also think surprised people.
Does that, in the sense, make the market reaction, the investor reaction, a little bit perplexing and perhaps doesn't have a lot of longevity? Because, as you've just gone through, a lot of what we heard in the report, was not that much upside, particularly in a long-lasting way for the forecast.
I actually think the challenge with the report that we heard was that it was a very mixed report. So some things did very well and some things did poorly. iPad sales were down considerably. Mac sales were up more than we thought they would be. The service revenue is up more than we thought they would be, but it's still a much smaller base that they're growing off of. So while there are definitely some strong fundamentals that they have, the iPhone number is really the number to watch because that's where a bulk of the revenue is. It will take many quarters for something like, say, Vision Pro to catch up to be anything near what a loss in iPhone could be. So the balancing of the portfolio for Apple right now is a really interesting, tenuous, but possibly opportunistic outlook. The question is, what is the timing of that? And frankly, none of us really know. And I think that that's one of the reasons why Apple refused to guide on certain product categories, but had much more confidence in other profit categories. For example, I was surprised to hear that they expected to have stronger iPad sales moving forward. So I think the thing that's a real challenge right now is to try to impact the timing of when certain sales will come back. They obviously have some releases coming out in June that we're all really interested in. There's obviously a lot of discussion about what they're going to be doing on the AI software side. So we still feel that there's another shoe to drop. And until we see that shoe, we don't really know what's going to happen.
Is the shoe potentially AI? Because it feels like a lot of the ability to hold on to that top tier, or at least not see it for too long, relies on the ability to play catch up when it comes to AI.
So what we're seeing right now is that the software innovation is what driving smartphone sales. The hardware is relatively similar with the exception of the foldability. So it's really all about the AI portfolio of software right now. So in the coming 3-4 weeks, we expect to hear something on that. And certainly by WWDC, we expect to hear a much stronger AI software story from Apple. If that doesn't happen, it's going to create quite an interesting effect in the market because they're going to say other companies such as Samsung have been really pushing AI for several strong quarters now, and that is actually driving the innovation around things that people care about, like how do you actually take photographs and make those better. So that's where a lot of the AI innovation is happening.
And Maribel as well, what did you make of the share buyback? Again, that's something that a lot of investors have sort of clung to quite optimistically.
I actually think share buybacks are not a bad idea, particularly when you have a scenario where you've had a blip and the shares have gone down. It's a way to level out the playing field for the volatility of the stock, which I think is good. And they actually back that up with a really nice dividend. So if you combine the two of those, what they're trying to do is create a much more stable foundation for the stock price moving forward. So I think it was a good move.